Join us as we uncover the symbols, the stories, explore the mysteries, the power, and the legacy of a kingdom that is still unfolding. This is a journey where history, prophecy, power, and people converge, and the story is still being written, from ancient kingdoms to the spaces where modern voices meet. Voices that refuse to be silenced, part of a heritage that continues to shape the present. The past is not dead, it lives, it speaks, and here we listen, we reason, we respond, and we testify. We dive into ancient truths, symbols, and signs still relevant today. The scepter has not departed, the mystery is not lost, and the kingdom, it is still unfolding, one episode at a time. This is more than a podcast, it's a return to the source. Welcome to the Scepter of Zion, where ancient truths meet modern voices. And now, to conversations, truth, and power, the scroll begins to open. And here to guide us through the gates, your trusted voice and seasoned guide, a voice for the remnant, your host, Ruben B.
Yeah. Just open the door right to your mind. Okay. You know what? Was it a political system or a statement of power? The Colosseum. I'm right back at it again. But you know what? It was built for Rome to broadcast its dominance after the fall of Jerusalem, funded by spoils from the Temple of Solomon. Gold, silver, sacred vessels taken from the house of Yuhei-Wavhe. So you know what? They turned this divine wealth into imperial display. So you know what? Tens of thousands of Hebrew captives were marched across the continent, forced into labor, shaping these stones that still stands today. So what once was a symbolized covenant and worship was repurposed to glorify this empire and to entertain the masses. But you know what? History did leave a trace. They left traces. So these same arches that echo with cries of the conquered, they now stand as silent witnesses. A reminder of a truth that's deeper than the empire. So every stone will bear memory that power built on sacred can never erase its origin. In our modern world, here we go. This modern voice, that's who we are. You know, the crowds are global. We still trade faith for fame, wisdom for entertainment, and sacred. But the purpose of an applause? The spectacle will continue. But so does the awakening. But the treasures that were taken were not only material, they were spiritual, eternal, and destined to return. So the Colosseum stands as both a warning and witness. Empire rises and falls. But you know, the divine order always endure. So what was born of divine will rise again. This is the Scepter of Zion, where history, spirit, and truth converge. That's right. We're going to dive into this lesson. So, the fall of the Roman Empire, it wasn't just a single event, but a long process. Influenced by internal decay and external invasion? Divine judgment upon a corrupt and idolatry power? So the Roman Empire collapsed formally, they say, in 476 CE in the West. You know it was split up, right? East and West. Well, now you know. So it actually resulted from a combination of internal weakness and external pressure. Political instability. So it cycled through these emperors rapidly. Many were assassinated or overthrown. Look, man, I don't like you. I'm going to take you out, man. No, 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 no. You got to go. So the loyalty shifted from the empire to individuals. Imagine that. Also, the economy collapsed. Heavy taxation, reliance on slave labor, currency devaluation. This all brought down the empire, led to financial ruins, not to mention this moral corruption. So the elites lived in luxury. We're seeing the same thing right now. While the lower class suffered, civic virtue eroded. Overexpansion maintained vast territories, stretched the military and the administrative resources very, very thin. So the military declined. Non-Roman mercenaries were hired to defend the empire, but their loyalty wasn't there. They got attacked left and right. 410 CE, again in 455 CE. So then you have this rise of rival power, particularly the Eastern Empire. And they began to act independently. And Persians challenged the Roman Eastern border. So as Christianity became dominant, traditional Roman religious identity weakens. It weakened, changing the Roman spiritual cultural cohesion. So from a moral viewpoint, Rome fell because of its decay from within. That's right. So even ancient writers recognize this. Edward Gibbons, in The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, wrote that the loss of civic virtue and moral strength was as fatal as the swords of invaders. Wow, imagine that. Rome was a civilization of idolatry, conquest, and enslavement, especially of the people of the East and Africa. Pride goeth before destruction. Many Hebrew Israelite scholars drew parallel between Rome and Babylon, both empires symbolizing rebellion against Yahweh and oppression of his people. We're seeing that right now, right here. We're seeing it right now. The destruction of Rome then can be seen as part of a divine pattern. Every empire that rises in arrogance, it eventually collapses. See, Rome falls fulfill prophecy from the biblical point of view. It wasn't just political. It marks the transition from the ancient world dominance under the Gentile powers. It fell because it was rotted morally and politically from within. It was overran or overrun by external forces that it could no longer control. Spiritually, it was prophecy. It was prophecy. So where the spirit, not ego, takes a final bow. Ego and purpose, noise and silence, validation and fear. The spirit wrestles for control. It's about attention. It's about attention. It's about attention not made of stone, but of choice. Huh? Yeah. Every compliment, every doubt, every expectation sitting there waiting for a show, and then the gates open. Yeah. I take this bow. Out steps the ego, armored in validation, crowned with approval, swinging a sword forged from every look at me. And don't forget my name. He's loud, confidence, shimmering like gold dust in the sunlight. He bows to the crowd and they cheer because he gives them what they want. And they came to see it. But from the shadow, another one steps forward. No armor, right? No crown, just light. It's that spirit. The part of you that doesn't perform, it remembers. It doesn't crave applause. It listens. So the ego laughs. Come on. Let's see what peace is worth in a world that only claps for chaos. So the spirit just kneels, and the entire arena goes silent. Because deep down the soul, no. Ego can win the fight, but only spirit can win the meaning. That's right. Battle isn't outside anymore. It's not lions, swords. It's pride and purpose. It's the noise you feed and the silence you start. Every day the gates open again and you decide to walk in first. The Roman emperor, a man who thought of himself as a god, sitting high above the Colosseum, watching blood spill for his approval. The people worshiped this image of him, and in time, so did he. It starts as an ambition, then dresses itself as divinity. It builds cities, then it builds cages. That's how that ego really works. Because the ego doesn't just want to rule the world, it wants to own the mirror it reflects in. Wow, really? You can almost see it. The emperor giving a thumbs up, believing his decision was fate himself. But history would later whisper, he wasn't ruling Rome, his ego was ruling him. When the ego becomes an emperor, the spirit becomes a slave. The arena is filled with distractions, meaning becoming an entertainment. Rome fall wasn't just political, it was personal. It was prophecy. An empire built by the mind, but destroyed by the mirror. So maybe the lesson isn't about Rome at all. Maybe it's about the empire inside us. The one we must learn to govern with humility before we start to crumble. So Rome wasn't destroyed in a day. It eroded in the hearts of men who thought they were God. We're coming up on our break right now. We'll be right back with some more powerful information. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Be right back.
When kings forget their crowns. Hey, did you forget something? It's sad to see you lose a kingdom over something that was never yours. Although your voice commands authority, your actions become null and void. What happened? What happened? One may never understand. You lost your identity and are unable to lead this land. once tall and strong in stature, never wavering on your ability to capture. You appear smiling and happy on the outside, but you are really burning down the kingdom on the inside. But there's still time to save you, to save us. Go back and rediscover what was meant to be. Go back and discover your sacred authority.
Yeah, I know you heard that. I know you heard Hannibal Barca. Where's he from?
Carthaginian.
Where? One more time. Where's he from?
Carthaginian.
The Carthaginian or Carthaginian general from North Africa, which is modern day Tunisia at the moment, where he invaded Italy with his army and his war elephants. After crossing the Alps, a daring feat that stunned the ancient world. His victories at Trebia, okay. Anyway, it was in 218 BCE. Lake Trace Semine, 217 BC, and Canaan, 216 BCE. This almost destroyed the Roman armies, though. So though Rome eventually defeated him, the damage was far greater than the military. Hannibal invasion reveals how fragile the Roman Republic system was under pressure. So the moral cost of the empire, the moral cost of greed, corruption, and overextension. A new fear that Rome was not invincible, right? So there's some hidden spiritual dimensions here. So in biblical and moral terms, Hannibal invasion acted as a divine test or chastisement, a reminder that pride precedes downfall. In this sense, Hannibal's campaign can be seen as a rod of correction, exposing Rome more decay and reminding her that human empires rise and fall under the divine order. This is reminiscent of how the Most High often used foreign nations as instruments of correction, right? So we could talk about the slave trade one day, because it is written in the scriptures, and it is a rod of correction, believe me. So, though Rome recovered militarily, the more damage was already done. But later, Rome went on to seize Spain, North Africa, and the Mediterranean islands, opening the door for massive wealth, slavery, and corruption. The Republic became obsessed with luxury and dominance, losing its old simplicity and virtue, right? Is that what money do to you? Is that what luxury do to you? Hmm. The Senate grew corrupt. The citizens became addicted to the spoils that they had stolen. And the virtue that was once defined the early republic began to rot. So the rise of these oligarchs and demigods, endless civil wars fueled by ambition and greed, and eventually the birth of the Roman Empire under Caesar, a monarch disguised as a republic. The Romans at first were simple and brave, but more decay began after the Punic Wars, or Putnik, however you want to say it. All right, the same wars that Hannibal defined. The spiritual meaning, judgment through adversity, right? The attack by Hannibal can be viewed as spiritually as the first tremor of Rome's eventual fall. Not in territory, but in righteousness, right? Just as the prophets warned Israel that sins leads to foreign invasions and moral ruins, so too, Rome, hard was being weighed. So while Rome did not worship the God of Israel, Yahweh, the principle holds no empire can endure once it exalts itself above divine laws. So Hannibal invasion was therefore a warning blow, the first sign that Rome's destiny would be tied not only to military might, but to its spiritual integrity, right? Yeah. Rome's external fall is well-known invasion, economic breakdown, overextension of moral and spiritual corruption preceded the political ruins. Rome was once deeply religious, with every act of life tied to its gods. Temples, ancestral rites gave the Roman people a shared moral structure. But as empires expanded, this faith turned to idolatrous and political, serving emperors more than the divine. The imperial cults demanded the worship of Caesar, which turned Rome from reverence for divine order to worship of man as God. That's a key marker for spiritual downfall. That's a key marker right there. So, not only did the military just fall, it was also spiritual lawlessness. So by the 3rd and 5th century AD, Rome, faith, family, and virtue had collapsed under greed and pride. I think that's kind of happening right now. They start to mix their temples with gods of Egypt, Persia, and Greece. So the truth was being replaced with superstition. All right? Their moral decay was the gladiator games, sexual immortality, slave, cruelty, and lust. So the loss of divine purpose, the Romans elite mocked this. So Rome too forsook the divine source, trading truth for pleasure and the empire for corruption. That's right. So Rome's spiritual fall thus preceded her physical fall, just as Babylon, cup of iniquity, was full before her destruction. So thus, Rome did not merely collapse, it spiritually rotted from within, fulfilling the timeless truth. Like right now, these two rivalries got going on here. Rome versus Carthage. So Rome, of course, you know, is located in Italy. It was a growing republic expanding through the Italian peninsula. It was a land-based power, a strong military. It was motivated by its control of building empires. Carthage, which is located in North Africa, which is today modern day Tunisia, founded by the Polynesian settlers from Tai, which is modern day Lebanon. Hence the Punic Wars, which is basically Polynesians. So they were a wealthy, seafaring people who dominated the Mediterranean trade, right? And they're tied to ancient Canaanites and Polynesian traditions. All right. So spiritually and culturally, this was not just a clash of nations. It was a collision of civilizations. The rising of European power, which was Rome, versus the Semitic African Polynesian world or Carthage. So they fought 3 times. The first one, they fought mainly over control of Sicily, a strategic island between Italy and North Africa. So I was there. Now that kind of explains to me why I saw these black Madonnas, these black faces, these black statues over there, right? So it kind of explains that. They had these wars with the North Africans, Carthage. So Rome built a navy to challenge Carthage dominance at the sea. So Rome eventually won, gaining Sicily, its first overseas province. So it was sort of the beginning of the Roman imperial expansion. Yes. The second was fought by Hannibal, the brilliant general, who came through the Alps with the war elephants to attack Rome from the north. I mentioned those 3 places that he conquered, with Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and Cannon. These were great tactical victories in history, but eventually Hannibal was defeated at Zuma in 202 BC. So Carthage defeat forced to surrender its navy, pay tribute, and cede territories of Spain. Wow. Spiritually and morally, this war changed Rome. It gained the world but lost its virtue. It began the road towards empire and arrogance. So the third war, it was short, brutal conflict, right? It destroyed the cities, burnt the cities down. Took them 3 years to do this. Survivors were enslaved, and the territory became Roman province of Africa. Legends say Rome sowed salt into Carthage soil, so nothing would grow again, symbolically erasing its memory. Right? These Punic Wars, they represent more than a political struggle. They were turning points in world civilization. Historically, Rome replaced Carthage as the master of the Mediterranean. Culturally, a Roman power overtook an older African Semitic civilization. Spiritually, so the balance shifted from the ancient Eastern Semitic world to the rising of the Western Gentile dominance. Uh, So, after Carthage destruction, Rome's path was set. The torch of empires passed from the hands of Thai seafarers to the iron grip of the West. Yet every empire that rises on pride will fall by the same hand, from Carthage to Rome, and from Rome to the modern age. The lesson endured. There's a historical parallel that's going on right now. Once Rome saw itself as the light of the world, a bringer of civilization and order. It too arose as a republic proclaiming liberty, justice, and divine favor, a city upon a hill. But the greater an empire rises, the more severe it falls when it forgets its moral foundation on which it stood. Rome, America. Wealth and conquest brought moral corruption. Wealth and global power have produced moral confusion. Politically, division between Senate and people, deep partisan and social divide. Bread and circuses entertain over virtue. Media culture, consumerism replaced morality. Slavery and inequity or inequality under the empire. Economic and racial injustice persists. Religious tolerance turned into spiritual apathy. Faith declining, truth treated as relative. Imperial overreach and endless wars. Global military presence and fatigue. The pattern is not exact, but history often repeats in spiritual principle, if not in details. So we're going on 38 millions or trillions and counting. Things about to get darker. So I want to thank you for tuning in. This is the bottom of the hour. This is the end of the show. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Amazon. Who else is out there? Spotify. Subscribe, like, follow. Right? Remember, stay rooted in resilience. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Scepter of Zion. If something stirred your spirit, sparked a memory, or whispered truth into your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, speak it, walk in it. We invite you to invite others into the conversation, into the unfolding. This is more than a podcast. It's a movement returning to the root and rising with the call. Until next time, hold the line, guard the flame, and never forget who you are. Because the kingdom isn't coming. It's already here and rising, one voice at a time.
You've been listening to the Scepter of Zion, a Kingdom of Shalom production. Subscribe, share, and join us as Zion rises again.